From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
More than a game. How one team's chance at hockey glory turned into something even more memorable. Not enough.
It's safe to say that we'll end this year dry.
The latest snowpack survey does not bring good news for Western producers. A wild week for wheat.
Pretty amazing bull spreading action going on in the wheat market today.
Fears push wheat prices limit up as war rages on in the world's breadbasket right now on AgDay. Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Wheat prices surging to levels not seen on the Chicago contract for nearly 14 years. As fears are growing over whether farmers in Ukraine will even be able to plant a crop this year amid a Russian invasion of their country. Now, take a look at the March wheat chart. You can see the dramatic rise over just the past few days, with prices spiking well over $11 here midweek. As we've been reporting, Russia and Ukraine combined supply about 30% of the world's wheat exports, with Russia being the top wheat exporter in the world. Right now, Ukraine ports are closed to commercial traffic, and there are reports of commercial ships being attacked in the area. That's cutting into the wheat supply, pushing already high prices due to inflation and supply chain issues even higher.
It's this unknown that we don't know if their supplies are going to be available. Actually, all their supplies right now, you could just say, are on hold, Russia and Ukraine combined. Well, that is a lot of supply that's just on hold that the world buyers can't buy. So that's got some amazing price action. And of course, that pressure's on the front month. Everyone assumes, well, by December, we'll know more about it and assume that their crops are available. Then that's why you get the bull spreading type action today.
And several countries appear to be switching their shipments in order to avoid Ukraine. USDA reporting Wednesday a sale of 264,000 metric tons of soybeans to unknown destinations. Of that, 198,000 is old crop. Another 266,000 metric tons of beans for delivery to China, with 198,000 of old crop beans. Now, export sources telling Reuters that Beijing actually booked at least 5 cargoes of U.S. old crop beans for delivery between April and May. Earlier this week, China was rumored to have purchased at least 10 cargoes of U.S. corn to replace shipments from Ukraine. And other corn buyers, especially those in the Benelux Union, Iberia, the Middle East, and North Africa, are also changing their buys to the EU from Ukraine. This has sent European corn prices to record highs. One trader saying that every day the Ukrainian ports are closed, it takes 100,000 metric tons off the world market. And then there's the higher costs of energy, with natural gas prices in Europe hitting new highs. Russian energy supplies are critical to Europe, which receives about 70% of Moscow's gas exports and about half of its oil exports. Britain has ordered Russian vessels be blocked from its ports. The EU also considering a ban on Russian ships. Here in the U.S., oil prices continue to move higher, pushing above $110 a barrel at one point on Wednesday. It's hitting peaks not seen since 2014. Now, the White House saying it is very open to imposing sanctions on Russia's oil and gas industry. And countries looking to South America for soybeans may find a much smaller crop. Check out these pictures we've gotten in from Brazil of what the country's bean crop looks like. That crop obviously impacted by drought. Brazil, Argentina, and Paraguay account for more than 50% of the world's soybean supply. Last summer, USDA expected the South American crop to be a record. Now, it's forecasting for the smallest crop since 2018. Since December, forecasters have lowered soybean production in the region by more than 18 million tons. In Australia, the story is too much moisture, with major flooding hitting Australia's New South Wales and Queensland regions, causing massive damage and death. So far, 17 local government areas have been declared disaster zones. Forecasters say Sydney, the country's largest city, could get up to 6 inches of rain in a 6-hour period. Back here at home, the news is not good when it comes to California's latest snowpack survey. The latest survey of the Sierra Nevadas reporting a statewide snowmelt forecast at only about 66% of average. Researchers say that's not enough to fill up reservoirs for the year.
December, January, and February are traditionally our 3 wettest months of the water year, producing over half of our annual rainfall. However, this past January and February were actually the driest consecutive January and February on record, dating back over 100 years in the Sierra Nevada. We were all encouraged after all that rain and snow in October and December, but after how dry these last 2 months were, there's no guarantee that the snowmelt will run off and follow the same historical patterns that they have in the past, which makes the results today all that much more important.
The forecasters say they're not expecting much more moisture to fall, and they believe the Sierras will end the year below average. Right now, statewide reservoir storage stands at about 73% of average. But there may be some help with the snowpack in the west very soon. Meteorologist Matt Yurosavik joins us. Matt, there's a dip in the jet stream.
Yeah, Clinton, that's right. A big dip in the jet stream coming. And if we look here over the next couple of days, we are going to see that ridge move off to the west. And we're going to be watching that warm air slide to the center of the country as that chillier air filters into most of the west. And what that's going to do is bring the chance for some precipitation along with it. It's going to be some lower elevation rain, higher elevation snow, all the way through the Rockies and the Four Corners region. And that dip in the jet stream allows even colder air to come in by the end of next week, really. So it keeps that active pattern around at least through next week, which is good news for our drought conditions out there in the west. And you can see a lot of precipitation falling, especially in those higher elevations. And if we switch over to the snowfall side of things, you're going to notice that there is a decent amount of snow in the higher elevations in parts of the southern Rockies down towards the Four Corners and even back into parts of California and parts of Oregon as well. And check out this cool shot. Siren Brune taking this picture of a golf course covered in frost. This was taken in Dublin, Ireland. It won't be long, and you can bet people will be heading for the links. I'll have more on your forecast coming up.
We continue to get reaction to President Biden's State of the Union address. The president discussing the U.S. response regarding Ukraine in a broad range of domestic topics, including electric vehicles. But one thing many ag leaders hoped the president would discuss, but didn't, was biofuels.
And we do think that that's probably a missed opportunity. We would have liked to have seen the president talk more about that, about, given the situation that's happening worldwide, given with the Russia-Ukraine situation and what a big exporter Russia is of energy, given the administration's focus on climate and reducing, doing all that we can to reduce the impacts of climate change and to address that in a meaningful way, we have ready-made solutions to address both of those, and that's through increasing opportunities for renewable biofuels to compete and to provide incentives and to create that space. We think it's both good for national security and we think it's also good for the environment.
USDA is providing assistance to the biofuel industry in an effort to expand the infrastructure for those higher blends and cut higher fuel prices. A developing story we're continuing to follow, the issue of bird flu in the nation's poultry flock. It's continuing to grow. The latest, Iowa, announcing that a backyard poultry flock in the western part of the state tested positive for the highly pathogenic avian influenza. Another case was reported in a backyard flock in Connecticut. Now, it's reported that both locations are under quarantine and the birds on the properties are being destroyed. The flu is a big risk to Iowa's egg and turkey production. So far, no human cases have been detected in the U.S. Yes, grain prices are surging, but that's also making livestock feed costs more expensive. We'll discuss that next in analysis. And later, a big game for one North Dakota hockey team. Took on added meaning in the country.
AgDay is brought to you by Germinator Closing Wheels. Germinator, it's not just any closing wheel. Reach your yield potential. Pre-order by March 31st with coupon code AgDay for $2 shipping per wheel.
Strong global demand for dairy continues to push cheese and butter prices to fresh highs. Just this week, cheddar settled nearly 11% higher at an all-time high average price of $2.96 per pound. Butter It set a new 5-year high at $3.12 per pound, converted back to U.S. 80% butterfat content. Now whole milk powder also climbing to 5-year highs. We're joined today by Naomi Bloom with Total Farm Marketing. Naomi, as we look at the grain price run-up that we've seen over the last month or so, the flip side of that is our livestock producers also have to buy feed, and that's getting very expensive. What's your outlook or I want to say your advice on how do we handle this back at the farm gate?
It's an important question because the cost of food production right now for the livestock sector is just out of control. And if you add on top of it that the pasture conditions are not great out west, and there's significant concern about that going forward. So the reality is that we're starting to see some of those head of cattle come to market sooner. We're not seeing expansion in the dairy complex. And so if you are a producer, I think a lot of livestock producers had been doing what they could do to lock in some of their feed input costs sooner. But if you're in the situation now where, oh no, what do I do? You have to really pencil out, like, okay, if you lock in some of your feed right now for what you're going to be getting through summer, then of course your risk is if prices go lower, then you'll feel a little sour that you priced at these higher values. But we are in a historic situation where prices could go higher from here. Looking over at the dairy industry, of course, because it's right in my backyard where I live in Wisconsin, we have milk prices up at the $23 level. Production has been trending lower for this probably about the past 5 or 6 months. And we're not going to probably see expansion begin just because the feed costs are so high. But the demand continues to be strong for the dairy complex. I've already heard rumors right in my hometown that 2 of the major cheese production facilities right around me are looking to expand. So the demand is strong. The export market continues to be overall strong. Butter, the world just can't get enough of the butter market. And so there is some potential for upside prices that could come higher yet for dairy. But again, with these higher price feeds, there's so much to manage right now. And so again, historic, understand your cost of production. You have to use risk management. Be really upfront and honest with your lender and also with your market advisor with the situation that's happening in front of you, because there is tremendous opportunity here, but of course the risk as well.
I heard you say historic, which I think is the best way to characterize it. Everything we've been dealing with here over the last few months. Appreciate it, Naomi. Thank you so much for being here. We'll be back with more AgDay coming up.
To discuss marketing strategies, call 800-334-9779. Your next piece of equipment is on MachineryPete.com. Search equipment from dealerships across the country to find what you're looking for. Only on MachineryPete.com. AgDay weather is brought to you by Zoetis. Even though calves don't wait for perfect weather to arrive, you can count on Zoetis to be there. Share a picture of your newest calf and you could win a calving season survival kit. Enter now at calvingseason.com.
Meteorologist Matt Yurosavik joining us here, taking a look at our national weather. And we begin with the root zone moisture map here, Matt. And boy, the difference between the southeast and out west just stark.
Oh yeah, there's been a lot of moisture really for the eastern half of the country, but back in the west, there hasn't been a lot, but that's going to change over the next week or so. And a lot of that moisture is going to fall over the next couple of days through the weekend and into next week. That's going to bring some rain and then some higher elevation snow, which hopefully will put a dent into a lot of these very abnormally dry conditions out there and some of the drought conditions that kind of correlate right with this root zone moisture map, but still a lot of moisture there in the south, and we're going to see a little bit more as we head into the end of next week. But looking at the national map, most of the area, most of the country dealing with high pressure. They do have the system out there in the northern Rockies and more moisture coming in to the coast of California there. That is going to be the main weather player out in the west until that big dip in the jet stream as we head through the weekend and into next week. Most of the east, though, staying dry, and just some high clouds moving through parts of really the Great Lakes and into the mid-Atlantic states as we head through Friday and into Saturday. Again, precipitation, most of it going to be going on out in the west, which is something we haven't said in quite a while. This takes us through the day on Sunday. You'll see a lot of it out in the west, more snow in the upper Midwest, and then some more rain breaking out in parts of the Mississippi and Ohio River valleys there. And then if we look at the snowfall, most of this also going on in the west, as we showed you just a little bit ago. A lot of the Rockies seeing some decent snowfall, including places like Denver, Salt Lake City, and then even back towards Carson City there in the mountains of California, before we get some snow going here in the upper Midwest by the time we get into the weekend. And again, temperatures are very warm out ahead of this big dip in the jet stream, so it'll stay mild out here in parts of the center of the country and in the south, but we'll eventually start to see the cooler air filter in as a lot of that moisture starts to move in. But tomorrow afternoon, still very warm right up through the middle of the country, while staying pretty chilly across the northern tier. And that's all because of the jet stream coming in, bringing up the big ridge there right in the middle of the country. But again, here comes the jet stream taking a dip as we head through the weekend and into next week. It's going to keep a very active pattern as we head through that first full week of March. That's a look around the country. Now let's take a look at the weather where you live. Youngstown, Ohio, a morning snow shower, but otherwise mostly cloudy, a high of 32 degrees. Morning snow showers in Brookings, South Dakota, a high of 26 degrees. And Tule Lake, California, mild with rain showers, a high of 53.
While cow slaughter remains high, drought and concerns about profitability continue to drive liquidation. Check out this map from the Livestock Marketing Information Center. The areas in red have seen an increase in beef cows. They are in the Pacific Northwest and the upper Midwest. But Drovers reports that prices have not seen a significant increase in those areas. It says so far this year, American ranchers are still culling cows at a very high rate. Through the first 6 weeks of the year, beef cow slaughter was averaging 12.6% higher. Now, last week, it was more than 20% above last year. A recent medical breakthrough could one day help produce more beef for a growing world population. The research involves Brahman cattle breeds. Experts say they are very important to global beef production due to their adaptability to tropical and subtropical climates. That includes Texas and other southern states. But a big challenge for the cattle breed is their overall reproductive performance. It's considered inferior to breeds like Angus and Hereford. Well, now a researcher at Texas A&M says revolutionary advances in science have defined the mechanisms controlling the secretion of a hormone, and he says his team is hoping to determine the differences between the breeds and use that hormone information to enhance reproductive efficiency in Brahman cattle. North Dakota high school hockey has seen its share of battles over the years, but up next we'll tell you about a special moment that happened before the puck ever dropped. A North Dakota boys hockey team made school history over the weekend, advancing in the consolation round of the state hockey tournament. Now they're from Mandan, and they are the first team from the city to record a victory at the state tournament. And while that's good news, Jody Kurzman of AgDay affiliate KFYR reports there's one moment at the tournament that was a little extra special.
This is a moment these players and these fans will never forget. It was the Mandan Braves' opening game of the state hockey tournament. The national anthem was supposed to play through the sound system.
Waiting for it to start and looking around like what's going on, and then in the stands I hear everyone just start singing, and then pretty soon the whole place started singing, and it was really cool.
Ryland's dad, Dave, was the first to start singing.
I kind of muttered like, well, I can sing it.
I was so anxious for that game to get started, and I was just like, let's just get it going.
Lori Lochner counted down from 3, and the Mandan crowd, led by Dave Beachel, took it from there. Before they knew it, the entire arena was singing. The Braves lost that game, but the final score isn't what they'll remember about this game.
It's definitely a good way to start out state. None of us have been there, so it's just like a cool memory to start off state.
It's a pretty cool moment to be a part of.
It just represents our country and the freedom that we have.
And this moment, an opportunity to share their pride as Americans.
Always a Brave.
And as Mandan Braves. In Mandan, and Jody Kurzman reporting for your news leader.
All right, thanks, Jody. And that's all our time this morning. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Quentin Griffiths. Have a great day.